the cloud. All right, so good morning, everyone. Today's agenda, as you can see, it is high availability. It's a concept in the IT technologies. It is not particular or unique to any specific vendor. It is standard that is recommended for as part of best practice that is recommended for heavy traffic environment, very heavy traffic where we have mission critical devices. So let's go to the FortiGate documentation. This is a documentation. We can let me copy this zone. We can come read more about it on our own time, but we just touch base on some of the technical aspect of it. But at our own time, we can come there, click the link, and then start deep dive on it. So if you look at, okay, let me bring this stuff out here. So first of all, so if we say what is high availability? High availability, it is a method or design pattern to make sure that devices used to process particular traffic, they are set up in a pair. Devices that is used to process or to set up a particular traffic, they are set up in a pair. What does that mean? I don't want to say firewall, because if I say firewall, it will be specific. So because high availability is just a way of setting up a cluster. So another word for high availability is a cluster. So I'll be using both words interchangeably. So it is not particularly isolated to only FortiGate. It is across the board. It could be in Palo, it could be in Checkpoint, it could be in Cisco devices, because we have all these high availability pattern in the deployment. So it's a deployment, it's a deployment type of setup. So if you are talking about design method, that's where the high availability comes in. So if we find ourselves working as a consultant, we need to check how critical the users or the server behind the firewalls are. That is where high availability comes on board. Not all environments can be deployed or can be recommended to be used to use high availability. But most of the time in data centers, they are recommended to use high availability because that kind of environment has tolerance, zero tolerance for downtime, has zero tolerance for downtime. With that, we recommend using most of the devices to be in HA, that is high availability. So high availability means setting up devices in pair or in cluster so that when user initiate traffic and then there's a downtime of one of the devices, the user will not experience any interruption in the traffic. So if you put it in a business perspective, because we are looking everything we're doing from business models, with that, we see that forward-looking managers, they will not plan the environment to get interrupted for one reason or the other, something that is within their scope. For example, now, if I have a business and maybe I have a delivery business or have a clinic where some of my clients, they get access to some of the informations or the requirements either through online or on a real time. So as a forward-looking manager, I must plan ahead of time to make sure that any devices we are using, in case one is done, another one should be able to take over. That is where the high availability comes on board. So one will be redundant, one will be backup, or one will be on standby. All those words, they are the same in high availability. In other words, high availability means in case of one of the devices is done, another one should be on standby to process the traffic. There's no more than that in high availability, either in switches or in routers or in firewall. That is the purpose of setting up high availability. The benefit is to what? Is to eliminate single point of failure. Single point of failure. So, and if you look at this diagram provided by the FortiGate, we see that we have internet network, and then we have some users behind it. And then we see a switch where all the network connected to. So let's assume that we are using one file, for example. Let's start with that scenario. We are using a firewall and the traffic is passing through this firewall, and it's passing through this switch, and it's going to this router before it goes to the internet. This is a use case 1. So let's assume this firewall has software problem. This time around, we don't have issue with hardware. We have issue with the software. With that, every traffic these users behind the firewall are sending to the internet, or they are getting from internet, will be interrupted immediately. That is one scenario. Another scenario is if there is a need for upgrade, and that the recommendation comes from the vendor, that is, they have a vulnerability that we should patch our device as soon as possible. And that we are operating 24/7 environment. We have a lot of business that are operating on 24/7 environment. The working shift. With this kind of setup, if these devices need to be upgraded, they will be postponed on something critical happen. So to prevent that, it is recommended that when we have a mission critical applications or we have high throughput environment, we should always deploy our devices in pair. That is in a cluster. High availability means setting up devices in pair. That is, one will be redundant, while the other one will be passing the traffic or processing the traffic. One will be active, one will be passive. One will be a backup, one will be processing traffic. So all those terminologies, they are all the same. That is high availability. So allows me, we have done justice to the definition of high availability. High availability means setting up devices in pair to prevent single points of failure. Any question regarding that? Any doubts or any suggestion? All right, if there's no question, we'll move on to the mode. So now, in FortiGate or in any other firewalls, we have two major types of mode we can set up our high availability. We can set up HA either in AA or in AP. AA means active. That is, both devices, they are working together at the same time. Both of them are passing traffic. They are processing traffic on a real time. this kind of setup can be found majorly in data center or very high throughput environment where they have some business critical applications, or they need some load balancing method. But the issue with this kind of setup is they always have issue of asymmetric routing issue. This is the major issue. So in theory, we can always see this, but in practice, I've not even seen this one set up, but I've seen a lot of AP, which is active and passive. An active passive mode, it means, like I said before, one device will be passing traffic anytime any of the devices inside initiate connection to internet or to their server. It depends how the environment is segmented, because firewall can be anywhere. It's not only at the edge. Firewall can be used in the segmentation within our internal network, and it can be used at the edge. So if you have active passive setup, it means that one firewall is on it, is processing the traffic, and the other one is on a standby. That is, anytime the traffic have issue or monitoring link is done on this one, the other one will take over. It is very, very easy to understand concept, because if you think on from a business perspective, we will see that, oh, this is just like having a backup or having a reserve for particular purpose, because business is presumed to be in continuity purposes. We always presume that business should not be closed from the day it is opened. So with that, most of the environment that is highly heavy in terms of traffic or very sensitive, they always use this kind of deployment. Though it might be very expensive, but it's in the long run worth the effort. But when we have a very simple topology, or we have simple users like stores, for example, now when I was working with one company, most of the devices I worked on, because I work on this FortiGate, the environment is FortiGate shop. They have more than 700 locations across the world. Most of the deployment, they are standalone. The opposite of HA is standalone. Standalone means it is deployed, it's a single device. So if you have a store, for example, now which store we can use, for example, let's assume we have Home Depot can be used as an example. We can use O'Reilly, for example, because they are all stores and they're close. They are not working 24/7. So with this, we can deploy only one device for them because we have working hour. So if their traffic is coming out from the internet, any of this PC initiate connection to internet, they pass through the firewall. Most of the business, they operate from 7 a.m. to like maybe 10 p.m., for example. Within this period, this business hour, if anything happens to this firewall, it can still be managed because it is a store. It is not a life-threatening issue. But environment like hospitals, where we have a lot of machines, life support equipment in the environment. So we will not recommend this kind of setup, because if this traffic is done, for example, if it is set up for an hospital, the life of human being can be threatened. Or if, for example, a doctor is operating and is connecting with another server getting information, and then the firewall is down, it will cause it to become a jeopardy to the environment. So most of the critical environment like hospitals, banks, it is only recommended to set up high availability deployment. And then we have touched base on the deployment mode. Deployment mode, the major deployment mode we have is active, and active passive. When we come to all this one I'm saying now is general way of deploying it. But specific to FortiGate, we'll take a look at it in the lab. So that is that. So we have touched base on why and the benefit. The benefit is to prevent single point of failure. This benefit is to prevent single point of failure. Most of the time in an interview, they ask what is high availability. It's no more than that. We define it and then we explain the purpose and then some of the environment that we can find ourselves deployed. But in environment like store, like legal businesses like lawyers or like all these immigration offices, they don't require high availability. They might require only standalone because their business is not mission critical. They can see withstand downtime at least 1 hour, 2 hours. It depends how the environment is. But I'm just giving holistic view of where it is recommended. It cannot be found everywhere. And then most of the devices that support high availability, they are middle range. We have some entry firewall that can support IHA, but it is majorly used in mid-range environments. So that is that. So if you look at this definition, if you look at this this diagram, for example, we see that port 1 and port 1 is connected. And then on the other side, we see 1 and 1 is connected. We see equally that HA1, HA1 is connected, HA2 is connected. What it means is part of the best practices. That is, all the interfaces in the setup, or let me start like this. There are some consideration when we are setting up HA. After we talk about the HA mode, let's talk about the consideration or the requirement. HA requirement. HA requirement. HA requirements. Number 1 is the pair or the devices must be what? Must be the same model. They must be the same model. The same model. What does that mean is if you have a need to set up 2 pair of firewalls, we must make sure that the firewalls, they are in the same model. For example, we have firewall GT100F. GT100F. We cannot set up GT100F with GT80D or the 80D, 80E. So both of the devices should be under F before they can work together. There is a protocol in FortiGate called FGCP. That is FortiGate Clustering Protocol. That is the machine behind the scene that will synchronize the 2 devices to be called HA, because both of them will presume to be one. They will synchronize and then they will be processing traffic based on the setup. If they are in the passive, if they are in active passive, so one of these link, we'll talk about link later, you'll be working as heartbeat, and then the same link, if we set only one, that link will be working as heartbeat, and it will be synchronizing the configuration. All the session will be copying back to the passive device. There will be a synchronization of the configuration, session, and then it will be heartbeat. The heartbeat will work in the sense that it will be monitoring the active device. Just in case the active device goes down, the passive will take over immediately. It is automatic. So we'll test drive it on the lab, and then we'll see how it behaves. So one of the requirements to set up HA, number one, is the devices in the HA must be in the same model. Another cool requirement is there must be the same hardware configuration. It must be what? Hardware, the same hardware configuration. The hardware configuration. What does this mean is this? If you are setting up HA between two pairs of firewall, the configuration wise, we cannot make this port to connect to this switch on port 2. I will make this one to connect to this switch on port 1, and then we expect them to form HA. No, it's not recommended. In the hardware configuration mode, the port 1 should connect to switch. Port 1 of the other device must connect to the switch, and then the other way around, on the one and on the one side, they must have the same configuration wise. Having said that, when we are configuring the heartbeats, the heartbeat link must be the same on both devices. Because why this one is very important is this. Some device doesn't have dedicated HA ports or HA interface. Like VMs, for example. VM doesn't have dedicated HA port. But physical device, like hardware, they have dedicated, some of the mid-range devices, they have dedicated HA port. That's a high availability port. So if we are configuring our HA, we must make sure that HA1 is connected to HA1 and HA2 is connected to HA2. Not the other way around, not using HA1 on HA2 and HA2 on HA1. It will not form HA. So this is one of the requirements that must be followed to the letter. HA is very simple to configure. It's a straightforward process, but to some of the concepts we just need to get ourselves familiar with. Another thing we need to put in mind is we need to make sure that the license wise, both of them must be on the same license. They must have the same license. One of the requirements. They must have the same license. Because each of the device, they have different licenses and the different supports. But if we have in mind to set up the two devices in HA, we must make sure from the get-go, we make sure that they have the same license so that they can form HA. Because the license we determine type of the support the device will have. So we must make sure that they have the same license. And another thing is, we've talked about the mode, we talk about license. They must be of the same generations. And then they must have the same software code. The same software code. The same software code. With this, it means that the software, if one of the devices is running 7.4.1, for example, like the one we are seeing, 7.4.0, the pair should be on the same software code. We cannot run a pair of firewall to be in HA with different software code. It will not sync. Even if we are upgrading one of them, the upgrading will take place after the upgradation is completed before they can sync again. During the upgrade, they will not sync. The both device will be on different mode. So after the upgrade and then they come back to the same code, they will now sync across the board. It's not only FortiGate, it's peculiar to all the vendors. So that is that. And then how the HA works, we have talked about how HA works. It is used to make sure that there's a single point to prevent single point of failure in the traffic. That is when a particular user in our network initiate traffic to the internet, the traffic, and then there's an event, maybe there's an outage in the environment, this user should not experience downtime, should not experience interruption in their usage. So most of the mission critical environments, they always set up HA deployment to prevent single point of failure and then to prevent interruption of their businesses. Because we are looking at everything we are doing from a business model. So that is basically the theory part of everything we need to know about HA. So the configuration, why each vendors have their different configuration pattern. Like FortiGate, the only protocol they always mention, which is the major protocol behind the HA or clustering, is FortiGate CP. That is FortiGate clustering protocol. It is the engine behind the both pairs can be in HA. And then we have another concept called virtual MAC address. This virtual MAC address, it is not what we need to configure. We just need to know about how it works. The switch, that's where it will work from the switch. Because the switch will now see, after we synchronize these two devices to be one, this firewall will be telling the switch that my MAC address is the MAC address of the active member. In other words, when we form the HA between our two devices, this is HA1, firewall 1 and firewall 2, they will have VMAC enabled. That is, there will be a virtual MAC address created for each of them, and then they will send it to the switch. That is there will be a gracious ARP. This one, they are part of what we talk about in the networking. So this address resolution protocol, this is gracious address resolution protocol. They will be sent to this layer 2 device. The layer 2 device will be seeing both of them as one, because they will have virtual MAC address configured for them through this FortiGate clustering protocol. That is what will be working behind the scene. So let's jump into, before we jump to the lab, any question regarding to what we have said so far?
I have a quick question, sir.
Okay.
So about the license, is it like if I have 60 firewalls, I have to buy 60 licenses, or once I buy one license, it will be for all 60 firewalls?
Okay, number one, each license has dedicated license with the vendor. If you have 2 firewall, you have to get 2 licenses. If you have 60, like you mentioned, you have to have 60 licenses. But different licenses is possible for different firewall. For example, now, if we have a support, in the support, we have different class of support. They have let's say they have like a silver, they have gold, They have gold. And then which other one they have? They have like a premium. So some of the clients in premium class, they will give them some support that if there's any time they have issue with their device, they are ready, they will be there immediately. So in the case of license, let's assume that we have a data center and we have a shop, maybe a tire shop, for example. A data center needs some IPS licenses. We have in FortiGate, they have FortiGuard. This FortiGuard, they have okay, when we go to firewall, I will show you some of the licenses we can subscribe to, because not everything in the firewall in every environment always subscribe to. But let's assume that it is data center, we need some IPS, we need AVs, Lancer, we need a file URF filtering licenses. All those advanced features licenses, they can be purchased individually. So if, for example, now we have two firewall and then one of them has different licenses from the vendor. That kind of scenario, we cannot sync those two devices to be in HA. They need to have the same license. For example, if you have a license for AV in one, the other one should have AV license. That's an antivirus. If you have URL filtering license, the other one should have it. If you have file analysis, every license should be replicated in the other one. But mind you, with any firewall online in production, it has a license. So that is that. Any other question? This one is calling me. Hello? All right. If there's no other question, I will urge us to come back to this document to read more about it. But everything we have said so far, it's just in theory. They will deep dive more on theory, but it's no more than what we have covered so far. So good. If you look at this, this place, they say identical output connections, and the identical connection for internal and external interface. Those are the theory part of it. So, all right, let's go to our lab. My lab goes down or what? Okay, let me log in. I logged in before, but I don't know. So if you look at this lab, this is a similar pattern they've configured on their own site there. So if you look at here, we have port 1 going to the switch. We have port 1 going to the switch. And then we have port 3 and port 3. We have port 4 and we have port 4. This is what I mean when it comes to the same configuration. This is configuration wise. Because this is a VM device. This is VM firewall. It doesn't have dedicated HA. Some hardware has dedicated HA ports where we can plug in and plug out. And then in that kind of scenario, we must make sure that we are plugging into the right interface. So what I've done so far here, I've configured only this router and the machine. So we need to configure the firewall and we'll test it. So, and then we shouldn't forget, I mentioned that we have heartbeat interface. So any interface we select will be the heartbeat to do what? It will be monitoring the active firewall. The same link, because in FortiGate is different from Palo Alto. In Palo Alto, we have HA1 and HA2. HA1 and HA2 in Palo, they are doing different functionalities. They are serving different purposes. But in FortiGate, one link serves the two purposes. It's serving the purpose of syncing, heartbeat, and sync. In other words, if I decide to use only one port, for example, I can use only one port in my own scenario. The firewall will still form HA. Because this particular port will still serve the same purposes. It will be sending ping frequently. It will send ping to monitor the active member. And then this same link will be using to sync all the configuration to the passive, all the configuration and the sessions. For example, this guy is sending traffic to the internet via the active firewall. If there's a problem or there's an interruption, maybe hardware or software failure on the active member, this guy will take over the session because the copy of the session has been synced to this passive member. And then every time we do a configuration in active, we make a configuration changes in active, it will be synced to the member in pair. I hope that part is clear. So let's quickly check.
I have a question.
All right.
So since on FortiGate, because this is my first time hearing that, since on FortiGate you only need one link, right?
Yep.
For both the HA1 and HA2. So what
Yep.
about for the backups? Is it just one link too?
You see, this is what I said. Best practice, we say use two. So that in case one of the link goes down too, the other one can be using it. But in Palo, we don't have that kind of, if you want to do backup in Palo, you need to have 4 links.
Yeah.
So now, what it means is if I'm using one of the link to set up my HA, one other link will be serving as a backup link.
So it's going to be one link for the backup for both HA1 and I'm just using Palo as an example. Just
Don't
one
use
link.
Palo. Don't use Palo. Palo has recommendation to use 2 links to set up their HA. That is HA1 and HA2. But in FortiGate, they use one link for both to sync and to monitor.
Yeah, I understand that. What I'm saying is in terms of for FortiGate, if you want to do the backup link too, you can use the same one link, another one link, right?
Yes, yes. Any other link you use is a backup.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Any other link you use is a backup because one link can serve us to do the heartbeats and to do the sync. It will sync the configuration from the active to the passive member. So, but best practice we recommend that the link should be 2. But in FortiGate, one link can set up the active and the HA setup. One link can do that. Because some scenario, we may not have luxury of having long cables from here and there. So that is that. So let's start the configuration. This configuration is very simple. Under 15 minutes, we are already done. Everything's being equal. So let me clear this one. And then let's check our configuration because this is a new lab. I just set it up for the purpose of this demonstration. Okay. Okay, this is active. This is parcel. Okay, let me log into it. Admin. Okay, admin. It's not been configured before, so I'm just configuring it for the first time, but we just do it quickly. So FortiGate only have a blank password. It's a blank password by default. So it forced me to change the password. So I put admin. This is a lab. It's not recommended for production to use that kind of password. So on the other side too, I do admin. So we have changed our password, but now they have 0 configuration on both sides. So now what we need to do is to configure our interfaces, and then we go to the GUI. So let's say we do config system interface. So we click enter. So we're going to configure our interface port 5. That's where we're going to get the internet from. Okay, let me see if I have the command here right. Okay, so config system interface port 5. Okay, I'll use this one as a 17. And then this. Okay, let me just show, because some of this, and then we need to pay attention to the version we are working with. Some versions, they changed some of the configuration in their version. If you look at here now, this one says set VDOM root, set mode. So if all these commands are not there, it may not work. But we need to pay attention to that. So I've not done anything, I just copy. So I want to go back to my notes. So my note on the right-hand side, this is just a command, and then it is now advisable to memorize all this command. We just need to get used to it. And then there's a lot of them are online. So we can be playing around with them. So it says set mode. So the mode will be static. The mode will be static. If you want to use the DCP, that's where we'll use that one. So this is set IP address. I'll copy it, and then I paste it here. And then I put end. All right, so set allow access ping, HTTPS, SSH. These are the services I want on this interface. So I'll copy it here. So let me change the port to port 5. So let me copy it. And then copy and paste. So I've done this side on the active. So on the passive, there are some concepts I've now explained how they form active and passive. So once I do this, what I'm doing finishing, I will explain it quickly so that we get the idea about how they form that. Right, this one is now pasting. All right, so let me do copy again. The only thing I change is just the address. So we have configured the interface. Only one interface each on the both sides we configured. We just configured this internet interface where we can access it. We have not done anything related to HA or whatever. So if you look at it, This is the port we are going to access our firewall from. This another port on the other side. So let me browse that IP now. 10 dot. Okay, I have .18 here already. Okay, let me use this one. 17 for the active member. So this is for active member. So let me use that one for 18 for passive member. So we can have GUI access of our firewalls. So in FortiGate, this is how it works in FortiGate. To set up active, to decide which of the firewalls will be active, which other one will be passive. There's what they call priority. So in FortiGate, it's different from Palo. In FortiGate, the higher number, which is maybe we have by default is 128. Both of the file devices, they will have 128 by default. So if you want to make any of these to be active in terms of HA deployment, we need to make the number higher. So we can make this one 200. Anyone with higher number will become the active. The lower one will be passive. But in Palo, the lower case is the case. But we don't want to go that. We want to compare apple to apple. So in FortiGate, the higher number is the active. But one thing has happened to me before when I was setting up HA deployment for one of our clients in Cincinnati. I set up HF deployment, but to my surprise, the higher number became passive. The lower number became active. That one happened to me, and then I have the experience. So I will explain some of the other requirements, other reasons that where we can have active. We can have active any of the device that has what they call higher number of uptime. They call it uptime in HA. Uptime. If the device is in HA over this one, it will become the active. Even with the priority, this guy will become active first. That is the higher uptime in HA deployment. We may not experience it here if we try it, but in physical devices, I experience it in real time. Another reason that another tiebreaker in HA, which of the device become HA, is the serial number. Any of the device, because when we are setting up HA, we have a serial number of the devices. Maybe one ends with 28, one ends with 29. The one with the higher serial number will become active. This one can still work. Another one is their IP address. IP address with the higher bit, with the longest prefix, can still become active. So that is some of the concepts that is not a rule of thumb. That is the one with the high priority will become the active. We can tweak it, but if we don't pay attention to, if you find ourselves in that kind of environment, it becomes tricky. Because when that happens to me, what I did is I fell over back to the one I want to be the active member. So let's go there. So we are going to configure the other settings now in our lab. So we log in. We do admin. Currently, we have not configured anything on the firewall. So to save time, let's configure these interfaces 1, 2. So let me run the script so that we will not be going to point and click all the time. So let me see if I copy and get it here. Oh, okay. Let me, because that one doesn't, okay. On port one, let me copy this guy to just copy. Okay, port one, edit port one. In between, there will be next. Well, we have port one, we have port two. All right. And then on port one, we have what? We have 192.168.100.1. That will be our interface. And then on port two, it'll be 151.1.1.2. So that will be on our external interface. So, okay, let me copy this one. This one will go to our active member. Okay, so it's logged me out already. Okay, admin. I'll go and change the admin setting now. So I'm still working on admin setup, so I will just refresh it. So if you go to the network tab, we go to our interfaces. We see that the script I run now is already populated here. We see port one is running on 100.1 and the port two is running on 100.1.2. So if, for example, we go to our dashboard, we go to status, we can bring a widget. We can add a widget here. We go to system, and then we look for HA status. So we can click here and add it. Add a widget. So we'll close it back here. So for now, we can see from the description that the status says it is standalone. It says it's standalone. That is, the device has not been formed any HA. So anytime I log into firewalls, I want to verify it. I don't even need to go to anywhere. I just come to the status. I check it if it's enabled. If it's not enabled, I come to the interface. This up here can show us here as well, this place, because if they are HA, all the link, they will be telling us some of their functionalities. Immediately we over our console, over them. So if I put my console here to tell me the functionality of each of the interfaces. So that's not the area we're going quickly. So if you want to configure HA on FortiGate, we go to System. It's under System. So we click on it. We click on it, and then we go to HA. Click on it as well. So by default, we can see that it is on standalone. So the next thing we need to do, we click on this drop down. The drop down is telling us, do we want to set up our device to be in active or inactive passive, which we have touched base about before. That is, if it is active, both devices will be processing the traffic on a real time. They can be used to be a load balancing, or they can be used to do round robin. It depends what the environment wants, but this one is majorly problematic because it will have issue of asymmetric routing, but it can be solved. But it's not even recommended, but we have it in theory. So, but we are going to work on active passive. So I'll click on active passive. So like I said before, by default it's 128. is 128. So we can leave it to be default, and then we put the group name. The group name is the name that must be the same on both sides. So we say headquarter group, GR. And then there will be a password to do what? To synchronize both of them. Because the device may not be on the same place. It's not a must that it should be on the same place. So if they are not on the same place, they can be anywhere, and then they need to do what? They need to synchronize, they need to authenticate with password. So by default, we don't know what is there, but we can change it to our own. We can put admin 123. This is just a demo. It's not recommended. So monitor interface. The monitor interface is the interface we want to protect. That is, this is the firewalls. They connected with this link. They connected with another two links inside. This is inside. This is the internet, for example. This interface is the monitor link. This two interface is the monitor link. So we want to make sure that if anything happens to any of this link, this guy should take over immediately. That is the functionality of the monitor link, is the link that processes the traffic. So that is that. So we need to select our monitor link. So click on this plus sign. On our own lab, we have our own monitor link to be what? To be port 1 and port 2. So we go back there. We go back here, we select port 1, we select port 2. That's our monitor link. But heartbeat interfaces, this is what I was explaining before. The heartbeat interfaces is the one that is monitoring the active member, and then is doing what? Is synchronizing this configuration to the passive member. So we'll click here, and then we'll select our heartbeat interface. So we select port 3, select port 4. So the next thing is to do what? Is to click OK. If you look at here, we have heartbeat priority. We can set up priority. That is, we want the priority to be higher in one of these interfaces, and then they will be working accordingly. But if you don't set it, they have the same priority. So each of them will be syncing, and they'll be syncing. They will be writing copy of the session, copy of the configuration to the passive member. All right, so the next is just to click OK. So it's to be loading. While it is loading, let's do something. Let's go to our policy. Okay, let's go to our policy objects, because now we don't have any firewall to test. We don't have any firewall rules to test. So let's go to our policy. Let's just create a demo rule, test rule. So now we click incoming interface will be what? It will be port 1. The outgoing interface will be port 2. And then the source, let's say source be all, and the destination all, and the service all too. So accept, and then is not, and then we'll click OK here. So we have firewall rule. And then we need to get, we need to have a route, because currently we don't have a route. So we need to create a route. So quickly we create a default route. So our default route will be going from our one interface, which is port 2. We click that, and then we click OK here. So currently, one of the firewall is 10.0.0.17. The other one is 10.0.0.18. Both of them, they will sync. They will be using one IP. we will not be able to access each of the interface again individually. We will not be able to access 1.18 again. We'll be using 1.17 to access both of them. That is how FortiGate works. They will be synced. They will have only one IP. I mentioned it before when we were talking about VMAC, virtual MAC address. Virtual MAC address. So this IP, this guy IP address will be utilized by this. So this guy will be sending GARP to this switch that, okay, my IP now is now the IP of this guy. We can separate them, but in this lab, we don't need to. We just need to know that they will be using one single IP. So now, if we go to our, what's it call it? Our network back, our network interfaces. If you put your console here, it says this interface is 8-bit interface, HA. This one say HA 8-bit interface. Currently, if I go to my command line, I said get system HA. For now, nothing. It gave me a group name. It said the mode is AP. But it doesn't give me if I have any pair or whatever. So if I do show system HA, it let me know that I have this, but I didn't have any other configuration. So now I can copy this command now. Okay, if I copy this command, okay. Another thing I need to show us quickly, if you look at here, somebody should have this question self. If you look at here, we see that we have set override disable. What does this mean is, just in case, if our device, this particular HA, is done, and the other guide, the other device, okay, let me go to the lab to explain it. That's concept. Set override enabled or set HA override. For example, if this device became done, and then this second firewall is now processing our traffic, and then after some times we corrected it, we fixed it, and then it came up again. If that set override is enabled, this guy will become active member again. Why this one will force to become passive? But by default, we can see that it's disabled. It's disabled by default. You can see it here. Set override disabled. So we can enable it. That is, anytime this device come up online, it should always be active member. The caveat is it will be having 2 failovers, because every time it comes on board, there will be a failover on it. So that is default. So let's go back to our passive member and configure it quickly, and then we check other things. Admin. So we don't need to do any configuration on this side. What we need to do is just to enable our HA, and they will be in sync. So the same thing, we click drop down, we select the HA, and then if you look at here in our configuration, we'll leave it on default. If you look at here, let me minimize this. We go to our HA deployment. The priority is 128. So the other side, we make our priority to be 100. We can click on drop down to reduce it. There's a drop down here. There's a drop down here. So the group name is what? Is HQGR. HQGR. If the group name is not the same, they won't form. And then the password is admin123. The interface, which is monitor interface on this, is port 1 and port 2. The at bit is port 3 and port 4. And then we click OK. So immediately this guy form HA with our active, it will lose connectivity. We won't be able to access this interface again. So they should take note of that. So let's go to our device again. So now this guy say is sync and then is primary. So let's just refresh. This guy will lose connectivity and then, all right. So now these guys has seen that somebody is sending synchronization configuration to it, but they are not in sync yet. But we can see that it has identified the device. This is the serial number. And then this guy is taking role of primary, while this one is taking role of secondary. So that is that. Let's refresh again. Refresh button is here to check if they are sync, but they will sync when all the this one is see now we have lost this connectivity. We won't be able to access it for now. So let's go back to our command line, and then we run the same command, show system HA, and then we run enter. So it just shows this one. Let's say get system HA. All right. So now we have not gotten what we needed. So let me refresh it. We won't get much until they sync. They are not in sync yet, but so it will take some time before they sync. When they sync, we will be able to use that command and verify some of the stuff. So while that one is going on, let's try to send the traffic from our test machine. Okay, the test machine we have 100.20. So let's ping our gateway first. This is just to test ping 192.168.100.1. Let's try we can ping it. So that is our gateway. So let's try to ping this internet. We have 8.8.8 as a loopback on this router. So let's try to ping it as well. We ping 8.8.8.8. So we can ping it. So what we need to do, we need to run continuous ping. So we'll be running continuous ping. We'll be running continuous ping and we'll test the failover. But let's check if they're already in sync. Let's go back here, refresh. But it shouldn't take more. This is in sync. Let's see, HQR. All right, you see, they are in sync now. So if you go back to our console and then we run the same command, show okay, let me do configure. I will not just show, let me do configure, and then do show. It's not giving me the complete visibility I want. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, let me see. Okay, group ID, sync, disable. Okay, this one is disabled too. All right. I'm not getting complete visibility here, but we can see that both of them are synced now. And then this is the primary, this is secondary. So now we are testing from our lab. The traffic is passing through this guy for now. It's passing through this guy to go to internet. So let's assume that we intentionally shut this interface down. We go here and we suspend the link. We suspend the link. Let's see the behavior. We expect this guy to be passing the traffic. But now we can see we are losing connectivity. We are losing timeout. It shouldn't behave like this. It should just start sending the link. So, but you know, this is just like, this is lab, and then sometimes some of the software can misbehave, but it's expected that it should be sending the traffic. Okay, let me try to stop this switch and bring it back. The behavior can come from, the misbehavior can come from the switch. But in a real time, immediately we switch off this link, the traffic will be sending across. Or let's stop this one, because we are monitoring two links. Maybe his brain is not telling this one that, oh, the other guy is down. So this guy is down now. This guy should pick up. Okay, let me stop. And then let's run it again. Okay, let's log into it again. But the expected result should be that this guy should be processing the traffic now. Admin, later. Okay, this guy has not synced anything. Okay, if we can see that this guy has taken the position of primary now. He has taken the position of primary now, but it should allow traffic flowing on a real time. But all this unexpected behavior can be experienced from software. But if it is hardware, or I don't know why it's behaving this way, but all the configurations are correct. So we should have traffic flowing. Okay, it's sending traffic now, but we don't know where it's sending it to. So because we stopped this one before. Or maybe it has some latency, because now let me stop it again. Okay, now it's behaving the way we wanted now. It's sending the traffic to this guy. It's sending traffic to this guy now, because the other guy is presumed to be done. So if this guy come back on board, let's see the behavior again. Let's say we started over. So if it comes on board again, let's see the role it's going to assume. But the pinging is still flowing through this guy now. So let's go to the interface. We just need to refresh it. Maybe the other guy is now. It's not fully, everything is the same. And then if you look at it, one thing that will make us know that they are in sync is, you see, we can access the passive firewall from the IP of the other one. And the other IP, .18, is not accessible no more. They are in sync, but the other guy, one of the devices has issue. And then now it came back online. When it came back online, we can see that this guy, it has assumed the role of the primary. Even with this guy having higher priority, the passive has assumed the role of the primary because we did not enable passive set override. We did not set up the override. Like the same way in Palo, we have a preemptive. If the preemptive is not enabled, one of them will still have the same guy. But there will be issue. The issue that is common to this kind of setup is split brain. Each of them will be presuming to be the primary, and then they'll be having issues. So that is that. So we can see that even when this guy is up now, okay, let's test again. We make this one down now. Let's see, maybe this guy will be automatically take the session because that is expected behavior. So now we can see that the other guy, we lost 2 packets, but the other guy takes off the packet immediately. So that is all about active HA deployment. So any question or any comment?
So, is it correct to say that we can set up 2 firewalls in different locations? I wanted to confirm if you say that, and if it's true, how is that possible? Because there's no way in the setup that's showing the serial number. I wanted to confirm that.
There's no way it's what?
Like when setting up the HA, there's no way it's asking for the serial number if they are not in the same location.
I don't get that part, but I understand based on what I said before, I understand what you said. What I said is this. I said there are so many factors that can make, that can cause one firewall to be active, another one to be passive, not only the priority. You know, when we come to this point, when we come to HA, we come to edit and we set up this priority. Some occasions, the priority might be higher and the other firewall should be the active because of the HA uptime. This is not firewall uptime. Maybe we plug in the firewall 1 hour ahead of another one. This one will have more uptime than this one, for example. But if you set up HA in this, 30 minutes later, we set up this guy to be HA. This one, because of the uptime, this guy will be the active member, even if the priority is higher. But we can do a failover back to the one we want to make HA to be. That is that. Another thing you said is it possible to set up 2 firewall to be in HA in different locations? Is that the question, or
Yes.
did I get that one?
Yeah, that's
okay. It's possible. It's possible. Not only this firewall, any other firewall is possible, because if you look at here, for example, if you have them in different locations, look at they have subnets, and they have subnets here too. So let's assume this guy is in one data center and this guy is another one data center. There will be a connectivity switch here. Switch will be there. right? There will be a switch in between them. So what we need to do, what we need to enable is in FortiGate is a rare occasion because those units are very small. You can just put them in the same place, but it's possible. If it is in Palo now, I will show you how it is done because they have facility for routing. That is, if the firewall are not the same location. But if you look at here, they don't give any configuration why, but I know it's possible if you want to do that. So that is that. So any other question?